This is Ant Lyons from Your Property Network magazine, and if you're watching this video, today we're talking about remote property investing. So buying, investing properties, refurbing from a distance and creating a portfolio that isn't on your doorstep. And I'm really, really pleased to be talking to someone we interviewed in depth recently in a recent edition of YPM magazine. So Harvey Lewis, thank you for joining us today. You are, let's first start, where do you live in the country and why not invest there?
Okay, so thanks for having me, Ant. Really honour. I've been a follower of YPN and a subscriber for years, so it's a massive honour. So thank you very much, and super excited about all this. But yeah, I live in Brentwood, in Essex, in the southeast, and I invest in Stockton-on-Tees in the northeast. So
for those people whose geography is not amazing, how many miles are between those two places?
It's about 250 miles away and about a 4-hour drive. So it's a fair old slap.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about. I'm assuming not on your doorstep because of the prices. The returns aren't there. All those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's exactly that. Sorry, I missed that part of it out from the first question. But yeah. Exactly, it's a barrier to entry locally and the style deals you have to do. So, for example, I was born in London, in Stratford, and I grew up in a little village called Averley. So it's still on the inside of the M25, but it's just on the outskirts of London, start of Essex. I knew when I'd done my first investment, I knew back then instinctively, without any education, that wasn't an investing location. It had hardly any stock there. We had no employers. It just didn't work. So I went to Southend-on-Sea, which is within an hour of drive, and invested there. And it was cheaper. And I got the barrier to entry was a lot cheaper. And I went within an hour. It turned out, though, that location within an hour from where I lived was right in the middle of a red light district. So I moved my friend in. I found this out when I moved my friend in. So he moved in. He stayed for about 6 years. So I think he secretly liked these ladies of the night walking past. But how it turned out, all jokes aside, he'll kill me if he heard me say that. But about 4 doors up, like this red light district wasn't like Amsterdam and a real nice tourist place. This was heroin addicts walking the street at night for their fix. And in the morning, to top it off, 4 doors up was a drug rehabilitation centre. So the same ladies that was walking the street at night would be queuing up in the morning to get their rehabilitation. And for me,
this is the challenge, isn't it? When you're investing somewhere where it's not on your doorstep, not right on your doorstep, that we can start to understand the sort of property values, but we don't really understand sort of the microclimate, that one street is different to another, and some of the socio-economic problems that might come with it, and the knock-on effects that can have as a landlord of, I've had similar problems before of tenants not taking care of a property because they've got some social problems probably. So a move away from Southend-on-Sea to looking at where you're investing now, 250 miles away, it's not on the doorstep. Mm-hmm. How do you... So why there in particular? Everywhere, I know a million investors who are based in sort of London and the southeast who go, I'm going to invest up north. But why this particular area?
Yes, I didn't stick a pin in the map, but it was the realisation, as I said, from that backstory. I didn't know Southend better than Stockton-on-Tees, but I knew Stockton-on-Tees better because I met a guy from there. So he'd moved down from Stockton-on-Tees. He'd done development. He owned a portfolio of over 70 properties there. He's got several business in the area. He moved down, met a girl I knew, and we become really friendly, played golf a lot, and that was my entry point into that area. Yeah. So it kind of picked me, not me picking it, but I run out of money. So I've done a few deals locally, run out of money, then see these deals, and I was like, oh, wow, the barrier to entry, and the BRI, so I like buy, refurbish, remortgage. So the last buy, refurbish, remortgage deal I'd done in the South, at the time, the deals was half the price as well. And I still had to put in around 40k, and I only could refinance that about 11k. The first deal I done up north, I put in 13k, and I refinanced that 14.5k. So I refinanced all my money out and a bit more, and a really high return on my capital and a lower barrier to entry. So yeah, that was the decision making, but meeting him was the key element.
Okay, and I also invest sort of remotely. I've got sort of properties about 120 miles from where I live, and it's an area that, you know, although I didn't know really well, I many years ago, 2 decades ago, I went to university there, and so I sort of knew the town a bit. And then a friend of mine, she had a lot of property there, and I got to know people there, and I think that was really important. It sounds like it was for you to have someone else who understood the area and could sort of check over your shoulder that what you were looking at was not going to be in the, you know, the worst area, with all those problems that we talked about.
Yeah, for sure. That is 100% the key element to it, finding somebody local in that area. So whether that be a sourcer, whether that be a friend that's there, somebody with experience in the area is so important. I support people with that now. It's one of the key questions I get asked all the time. I said, look, today it's not so random. That guy moved down, it was very random. 11 years ago or 10 years ago when he moved down, there wasn't social media isn't what it is today, but social media has changed the landscape for this. If you go online and go into your property groups or anybody in property groups, there's communities of people that are accumulated already that have got the same interests as you already there. So you turn up in this group and say, I'm coming to Stoke, I'm coming to Liverpool, I'm coming to here. Is there any other investors that I can connect with? And you'll get hundreds of people. Like if you go through the groups consistently for a month, if you post every day a different post, don't spam it, but the same sorts of posts saying, I want to connect with people, blah, blah, blah. And you go through all these different groups that have got 30,000 people, 40,000 people, 10,000 people in, you'll get a lot of people hold their hand up and say, I'm from that area. Yes, you've got to qualify them because not everybody is, you can take them on face value, but you'll get a lot of people that hold their hand up. So it's absolutely vital to get to know the area. I just done it with one of the guys I'm working with. He went to an area, I got told by the agent, same as me. I got told by the agent in Southend it was a great property. He got told by the agent it's a great property. I said, I know somebody in that area. Well, it wasn't mine, but I said, ask him. And he come back and went, that's not a very good place. And he went, no, the agent's not going to rip me off. They want to manage it afterwards. And I went, you probably want to just cross-reference it. Go into this group that's based in the area and just ask the question. About 40 people answered and only one person answered positive. That was the agent because he was in that group. The rest of them all said, steer clear. So it's not simple, but it's more accessible to research an area, especially with Google as well, telling the crime reports and the schools. The simple fundamentals are there. But as you said, the fundamentals could be this street's good and this street's not. So you do have to get a bit of a deeper look than Google, but the base level is Google. But then go and network online, find people in the area that can support you, and it's accessible today.
And there's plenty of those networking groups out there, and online groups, Facebook groups, networking events, online networking events, soon, hopefully in-person networking events. So it sounds like connecting with other people in the area. And I guess benchmarking their deals against what you were looking to do as well has been a real key to you getting this model for investing. And it is a model because I guess before it was putting money in a property and waiting for the values go up. And this is more a model of income generation, taking that capital and stretching it into multiple deals and creating the equity in each one. So the buy, refurb, refinance model, it sounds like you've got that, right in your area now. So let's talk about, how do you find a property when it's 250 miles away? How does that work for you?
Yeah, so finding a property is very similar to finding it locally. So, and again, power of online and social media. This is what's massively changed the game. A lot of these investors, and I got caught into this saying only invest within an hour. And that's what made me realise I invested in Southend. I didn't know it no better. For me to network there or network up north today with online it's just going to be no different. I would do the same approach. But finding deals is exactly the same. So I use direct to vendor Facebook ads. I go online. All the portals are online. Agents, like if you build a personal profile and a personal brand, what happens is people build like and trustability gets built on touch points. So Robert Cialdini wrote the book Influence. He said it's 7 touch points. Google done a study in 2011. It's probably changed slightly now. It said because of social media and the marketing that we get piled towards us, they call it ZERMA, zero moment of truth. That's the point of when people build that trust enough to either buy from you or do business from you. And that's the buying behavior of people. Google holds the most data in the world, so they're the best position to tell us this. That's moved up from 7 touch points to like 11 to 12 touch points. But if you've got a profile online, you build up them touch points without having to go networking. Even if you was in your own location, you want to build a profile. Because my solicitor called me the other day and she's from Stockton-on-Tees and she was like, oh, Oscar's doing well. She's never met Oscar. That's my son. She follows me on Instagram. She must be around 60. You'd never imagine it. but that's built my profile with are builders, but agents are also online. So what you want to do is find them on their profiles, connect, comment on their line stuff. And the nature of anybody today is they look on your profile. And if they can see that you're then doing deals and you're educating yourself and you're going to network events, you pre-qualify yourself, because all agents have got a preconceived conception of investors today. There's so many investors that walk in to an agency that says, I want a deal, I'm going to be a deal packager. And then next week, they're going to be Bitcoin. And the week after that, they're going to be e-commerce. And the week after that, they're rent to rent. And they've got preconceived conceptions. You've got to half prove yourself. But if you've got a profile online, you build relationships with agents, and you can then get them to do viewings for you over video with you. Definitely turn up if you get an offer accepted. You say, my offer is subject to me turning up and seeing it.
Okay. I was going to ask about this particular thing, and I think it's really interesting that you've adopted the same approach that I adopted, actually, of making an offer on a property, and then if that offer is accepted in principle, going to check that the property is everything as you would imagine it would be, because you don't want to you can't afford to really say, I'll go and see every property and then I'll offer on them, because that would be 3,000 miles a week or whatever it would be, going up and down. So it sounds it's really important to get the agent has the right picture of you, following you, understanding what you're doing, make sure that you've got the credibility to make that offer, and then say, if I turn up and it's everything that you tell me it is, I'm buying it. Was that a challenge earlier on, or did you sort of adapt to that sort of very quickly?
No, because again, I had that guy in the area, so his team done the viewings for me. And again, you can find a young guy I pay people, I pay agents to do viewings for me, because these are great people, because they're looking at properties all day long and they do viewings with other people like on other agencies, so they know all the other agents as well. They're looking at them all day long. Their valuers on the road all day long, so most of them squeeze them in between the day. So it's no extra time for them, so it's net time for them, but they earn a little bit extra income. So I pay them per viewing, anything from £15 to £30 per viewing, and then I'll pay them on every completion. So agents are good for this, builders are good for this, people on the ground are good for this also. Once you've built that trust, the first few you need to go there yourself to make sure you see what you're seeing, and then you cross references with the people, say, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I'm doing. If you create yourself a check sheet of what you want to view, they can even do a video and you walk through that check sheet with them while they're doing the viewing. It's more accessible. Of course, it's much better to view them in person, but you just got to weigh the pros and cons up. The barrier to entry, pro and con, is the big one for me, but more than accessible tech.
Let's talk about one of what in my opinion is one of the big challenges, actually. Once you've found the property, once you've completed on it, and that's from that buy, refurb, refinance bit. It's the bit in the middle, the refurb. It can be challenging to find builders, contractors locally, if you live on the ground, people who do a good job, and sometimes you've got to stay on top of them to make sure that things happen. So that problem is definitely, in my experience, exacerbated when you're not on site, you're not there. So how did you find good builders, and how do you make sure that the sort of refurbs are managed so everything comes in roughly on budget? We know that those budgets always change a bit, and on time. So can you just talk us through that?
Yeah, always challenge with builders. I'll probably go through 3 or 4 builders a year, but I do that locally as well as I do it remotely. Always got challenges with it. It's slightly more challenging without a shadow of a doubt. You have to weigh up the pros and cons of it, as I keep on saying. But builders, like anybody I work with, whether it's a marketing person, whether it's somebody I hire, there's qualified, disqualified processes that I put everybody through. So the better you and the more stringent you are with your qualified, disqualify, the better chances you've got of getting the right people. It's not foolproof. The more better chances you've got of that. But similar again, your profile. So I had a builder I got a recommendation from. So I'm online. I'm asking for recommendations. Massive way to do it. So you can go on these groups. I met a guy online who's prolific in the area. Asked him, have you got a recommendation for a plasterer? He said yes. I trust his recommendation. I've known him for a long while now. Met him in person. He sent the plasterer out. The plasterer turned up to my property, done the work. I've got someone on the ground now to snag it. So they snagged it, looked at the work, said, yeah, it's fine. I've said to him, he said, where do I send the invoice? I said, send it to accounts at Growth Properties and CC me and Harvey at growthproperties.co, blah, blah, blah. And he went, oh, you Growth Properties? I've been watching your profile online. And his whole attitude towards me changed. He was okay with me, first of all. He wasn't arrogant or horrible to me, but because he'd seen my profile and I was obviously creating work and he wanted work and a steady work, he was like, oh, we do this, we do that. So your profile helps also with builders, because obviously a lot of builders do like the fact that they can get steady income and steady work from that. But answering the point on checking the accountability, every builder, so when I first speak to them, I just manage their expectations. I've got a process I go through it with them, tell them roughly the price I want to pay, the time scales, can you match that? I don't want to waste your time and you to go in there if we're miles off. So go on online portals, check a trade, my builder, phone around the building suppliers, ask them, is anybody you can recommend? Go online, ask for recommendations. So you can do all this virtually. You speak to them and you ask them a few questions around things. I don't want to be too demanding with builders, because builders are in demand. And if you get too demanding at the front end, they're just going to go, oh, look, you're a demanding investor that wants the world and don't want to give nothing for it. And you're just not going to get any further. So you build a bit of rapport with them, manage your expectations, tell them roughly what you want to pay and say to them, I don't want to waste your time. You then get them out to quote the property. Once they've quoted, they're a bit time committed. And also you've built some touch points with them. Ideally, you've encouraged them to your profile as well, so they can see your credibility. So you've built up a little bit of a picture. At that point, that's when you get a little bit more demanding when a quote comes in, if the quote meets what you want to meet. You then start talking about your timescales and your heads of terms sort of thing. So it's not a contract. I remember a guy said to me, a JCT contract won't stand up in court under 200 grand. I said to him, well, that's where you're missing the point. Our contract with them is not a law one. It's just our expectations that said, these are under 15K. So we're going to pay you in stages if you meet these demands. So you've got to give us daily updates in WhatsApp. Sure. And you say it in a verbal way first. You say to them, surely you understand, 400 mile away, 200 mile away, 100 mile away. I can't pop in daily. I've had people take 3 months doing a job. Should have took 3 weeks, like squeezing stuff in between. So I want you to give me daily updates, just photos to know you're on site more than anything. And then we'll pay you in stage payments. I'll pay for all the materials up front. I'll pay you in stage payments each week, so you're not paying wages out. So each week I'll pay you off, and you just negotiate it. But at that point, they're a bit more committed. But the key to it is start a WhatsApp group, make sure they give you updates. Say, if you don't give me the updates, I'm going to stop the stage payments. And then it's down to them to chase me, even though it's not a JCT contract. We're still on our heads of terms, said, this is how we're going to pay you. This is what the spec is. So make sure you get that spec and that negotiation with them, like really clear at the front end. Does it go wayward sometimes? Yes, but does that? I've adopted the same plan locally, and it happens the same locally. It goes wayward, even if I can pop my nose in every day. It's just the nature of that game and an occupational hazard, unfortunately, I think.
Okay, well, I think it's amazing advice there. Very, very practical advice on how to buy and refurb properties from a distance. I wanted to ask about the management side of things, because you're building a portfolio. You know, this is what you do. Are you self-managing? Do you have someone on the ground who manages for you? Do you outsource to an agent? How do you cope with the sort of day-to-day management of property?
Yes, I built a team, but that is, if in hindsight, if I went backwards, in hindsight, I shouldn't have self-managed and built a team. We kind of just fell into it. That guy I met in the area initially was managing for us, but it's just a side hustle for him property. So he hadn't no systems or anything. So I hired somebody up there, more to do on the buying side of it, because we buy for other investors as well, portfolio build. So I hired somebody, and we kind of just fell into self-managing, not strategically. And then you thought, oh, it'll be an extra income stream. And wow, how did I get that wrong? And it was mainly on me as well. I like buying properties. I like refurbing them. I like that part of it. I don't like managing tenants. So I kept on reading loads of books, going on seminars, doing some education, and just, this is an age-old mistake that loads of people make. Outsource, delegate everything, delegate it. What people don't realise, and this is not to put people off, because I'm a fan of that, by the way, but finding talented people is difficult, and especially when you're small. Even up to Apple size, there's talent wars out there to find talented, reliable people. So similar again, you need to qualify, disqualify them, and have a process to bring them into your business correctly. Because even if you find somebody good and you've not got a process, you might lose them because they just get fed up because of the chaos in your business. But if you find somebody bad, it's equally bad. But yeah, for me, with the letting side of it, my hiring process was, here's a laptop, I've read this, and I used to spit out everything I read from a book, spit out everything I read from learn from a seminar or training day, and go get on with it. Delegated. I read the 4-hour work week. I'm not a micromanager. I was easy to do that, and all I was doing is compounding and making a big mess of that. If I give it more of my energy, I think we could have potentially done different with that. As a result, if I give it more energy there, I wouldn't have bought as many properties because I couldn't have given the energy there. So yes, you can self-manage. There is
would you, if you were starting again, would you take the same approach? Would you employ an agent
100%.
initially? Well, what would you employ?
Yeah,
just take
100%.
on an agent.
And again, qualify, disqualify. So we got to 2017 and created a mess with my lettings. And what I done was I went out to try and find an agent. And what I found was there was like you got the big corporates that was systemized, or you got the small boutiques that weren't systemized, and the owner was the business. But because I studied business and I knew what I'd got into, I was like, you're good today, but you've not got the foundations to grow, and you're going to come a breaking point. So it might be good for a year, but then once I'm comfortable, in a year or so time, you're going to break. At that point, we carried on ourselves, but I created a real stringent qualify, disqualify. Ask the agent, have you got onboarding processes? Have you got training processes? Are all your processes documented so they can stay reliable? Because there's a high turnover in the lettings business for employees because it's not a great business. So
I mean, it's poorly paid. Yep. Generally speaking, and the job's quite hard, and it's a thankless task. I always said to my letting agent friends, I say, when it's all going well, people wonder why they're paying you, and when it's all going wrong, they wonder why they're paying you. So it's a tough business from that point of view. So Harvey, I know we're limited by time today. I think you've done an amazing job of giving people an overview of just what is possible and why that physical barrier of several hundred miles, it shouldn't preclude growing a property business, growing a portfolio, and aggressively as well. You've really kind of gone into this. So I know you're very keen to connect with people sort of online. So what's the best way if anybody's watching this, what's the best way of them to start sort of following you and get in contact?
Yeah, so the best way is my remote property investing community. It's a great place. If you're thinking of remote investing, there's investors and connections for everybody. So I'm actively out trying to find good people in different areas to come in the group to connect people with them, because that's the main point, connection. So remote property investing community on Facebook, Harvey Growth Properties on Facebook, Instagram, Harvey Growth Properties. All my handles are Harvey Growth Properties. So find me on any of those sort of handles. I'm hanging about in Clubhouse quite a lot at the moment as well. It's quite an addictive place, but yeah, just mainly on social media if you want to reach out to us.
So you can't miss that. Harvey Growth Properties. I had to double check and look into what your last name was, because you don't use it anywhere. It's just Harvey Growth all the time, isn't it? So
yeah, funny enough as well, I forgot to give the feedback to us. My name is actually Andrew Harvey, but everybody's called me Harvey since school. So actually, when I first started networking, it felt really weird when people called me Andrew, even though it's my name. I can't comprehend it myself. It's because I've always, apart from my mum and maybe a solicitor, everyone, even teachers used to call me Harvey, my friends' parents, everybody's called me Harvey. So in the end, I took the conscious decision to say, you know what, just everybody call me Harvey because it's friendlier. And I changed that online because people was getting mixed up. Should I call him that? Should I call him that? So I just changed it. But yeah, it's actually Andrew Harvey. But yeah, please call me Harvey, everybody, because that's what feels more friendly. And I like to make friends and networks in this community.
Okay, absolutely. Do you know, I've since the day we launched the magazine, I always insisted that I was always called Ant. It was never really Anthony. I didn't really like that. I was only ever called Anthony if I was in trouble. So I thought I'll stick with Ant, and so I could completely understand where you're going there. So it's been an absolute pleasure connecting today. So if people are watching this video, maybe it's on Facebook, maybe it's on YouTube, maybe it's on LinkedIn, or maybe it's in the YPN app or whatever, and you want to find out more about Harvey and more about property in general, then go to yourpropertynetwork.co.uk/subscribe. So yourpropertynetwork.co.uk/subscribe. You get your first copy of the magazine posted out to you completely free of charge. If you like it, if you like what we do, it's £7.95 a month. Thereafter, as well as the magazine, you get an app. So you can access the last, I think it's 3 years worth of digital editions on there, and all of these interviews and the in-depth ones that we do with property investors and developers around the UK, people who are really out there making money out of property. So Harvey, been an absolute pleasure today, and you've been a star. It's great to do this, and you bring so much energy to it. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, and yeah, just an endorsement to YPN magazine. A massive fan of it, been subscribing for must be 6 years now, and absolutely love it. Always look forward to my edition. Keep doing the great work you do with the property and the voice you've got for property. It's amazing.